And then there were 16. What's up, guys? Sleepy Picks here. I got Joker joining me as well. We're going to recap the round of 32 games and take a look at all of the Sweet 16 matchups. Let's get started. And on our last show, we did the games for Saturday. I finished with a 7-1 record, including calling Michigan State winning by exactly 8 points and Texas upsetting Gonzaga by exactly 6 points. Both of those in the video there. We're giving you good stuff, guys. Joker himself didn't do too bad either, going 6-2 on the games. We both missed Vanderbilt, and that shot almost went down, so almost an 8-0 day for me in my picks. And Joker missing Texas A&M. We'll talk to him a little bit about that and see if he still believes in buckyball. Let's get to the matchups. First game up, we have the number 1 seeded Duke Blue Devils taking on the number 5 seeded St. John's Red Storm. And some really great games. We'll talk about Duke's path here first. Getting through a tough fought game against Siena, 71-65, and then able to dispatch TCU 81-58. That score's a little bit deceptive. It was not. It was a much closer game the whole way through. And guys, I don't like saying this, but I feel like I have some gripes with the way the game was called. TCU 20 personal fouls to the 15 Duke personal fouls. You know, there was one big technical foul against Jamie Dixon that kind of changed the whole momentum of TCU. Just watching that whole game, it really felt like it was going to be a back and forth game. But you get the technical foul, and then Duke's able to pull away a little bit, get a double-digit lead, and then just continue to just hammer their offense. One of the big things that they succeeded at was on the boards. They rebounded 42 to TCU's 25. So nice win for Duke. Good-looking win there. The St. John's game was a much tougher affair against Kansas, and I had a feeling that Kansas was going to win this game. I thought it was going to be a Darian Peterson game, and honestly, for most of that game, he was shut down. The St. John's defense was just so strong, and seeing them play there together as a unit, shutting down this offense of Kansas, making Darian Peterson not look like the NBA prospect that everyone's saying that he's supposed to be. It ends with a buzzer-beating shot by Dylan Darling, a layup. And funny thing, in the press conference, he said, like, he didn't even look back. And you watch the replay, like, he doesn't even look at the ball. You know, he just watched the crowd reaction, and he knew he made it. So another magical moment here in March. St. John's able to beat Kansas 67-65. Joker, talk to me about these two games. What did you see? Where do you see the strengths of these teams? I was really impressed with the defense of St. John's. I can't wait to see these matchups here. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm not going to get into it just yet. But talk to me a little bit about these two games.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked at the score of Duke TCU. Although I did have Duke to win, by double digits. TCU held in strong. I mean, punched down low. Really gave Boozer all he could handle. And I think something that can't be understated is Patrick Ngongba getting back into action. Obviously in limited minutes coming off the bench, but his presence down low in the middle takes a little bit of that, we'll say, defensive responsibility off Boozer's plate in the middle. So I think it's a huge boost to have him back. Now, St. John's game, one of the classics so far of the tournament. I was on the Kansas side, as a UConn diehard. I'm not the biggest St. John's fan, but St. John's is a very good team. They obviously were preseason top 5 for a reason. I think that they did shut Darren Peterson down, and everyone talks about Peterson being the number 1 pick. And to me, if you're going to be the number 1 pick in these big games, I mean, he just went silent for, 10, 12 minutes in the middle of that game, which, St. John's able to build that double-digit lead. And hats off to, Kansas for coming back and making it a game. But, they just, to me, I think it's the end of Bill Self. I'll say that quickly. I don't see Bill Self coming back. I think that was his swan song with the health And then I just think the way, his last couple teams have been constructed, they just haven't been able to really get over that hump. But, hats off to St. John's. I'm really looking forward to that matchup against Duke.
Yeah, and let's take a look at that. And yeah, Bill Self in his press conference, for the first time really talking about his health issues. So very interesting to see that. I think in the new NIL era, I don't think Bill Self has a place in it. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come back. And if he doesn't, I mean, we're going to definitely expect a lot of regression from a Kansas program that has been so well established under Self. But that's a story for another day. Let's take a look at Duke taking on St. John's. And the one matchup that I was saying is the Ejiofor versus Boozer. Plus you have Njamba. I can't even pronounce it right. You have him down low as well. He's got now a game under his belt. Smart for Shire to put him on limited minutes, get him a little bit of a taste of the TCU game, and now he's going to be taking on the St. John's team. Now, I think St. John's is going to control the pace of this game. I feel like we're going to see a little bit more of a defensive battle. And honestly, guys, with these ACC teams, I'm trying to think of a team that Duke has played that has the type of defense that St. John's has. And that's what I feel like that's going to be a huge factor here is all of their shots are going to be challenged. St. John's is an extremely athletic team. And Duke, obviously, with great top 5 starters here. But for me, let me just pull up Duke's numbers here. And we talked a little bit about them in the Siena game. The number 8 offense in the nation, the number 1 defense in the nation. They don't shoot the 3 relatively well. So and as we get deeper into these tournaments, the 3-point shot becomes so effective for you to start to pull away from some of these teams. Now, obviously, the foul differential against TCU kind of helped Duke to pull away from that, but the 3-point is one of the things that allows teams to kind of build some of these bigger leads and get momentum with the crowd. This game's going to be in DC, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 50-50, maybe a little bit more leaning towards the St. John's fan base. We know that they travel. They're going to travel for this game. This game means a lot to them. At the end of the day, though, guys, I think this Duke team is going to be too strong. I think their offense, they're able to get kind of whatever they want on offense. St. John's is going to have to have a pretty solid day as well with their defense, with their scoring, if they want to keep up with this Duke team. I'm going to go with Duke to win by 8 points. Joker, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, I think this is one of the games I have circled, that's going to be a great Sweet 16 matchup. I like St. John's here to cover. I think the spread right now is 6.5. I like them to cover that. And I do like St. John's to win the game outright. I think, like you touched on it briefly, the defense of St. John's against Kansas was stifling. I mean, if they're able to stop Darren Peterson, Duke, I don't know that they have the elite guard play to kind of take them over the hump. I mean, obviously, Boozer versus Zuby Ejiofor down low is going to be, quite the battle there. But I think St. John's has 2 players that really aren't being talked about enough, and one of which is senior Bryce Hopkins, obviously former Kentucky man under Calipari, Providence guy, at St. John's. I mean, Hopkins was excellent. 18 points in the game against Kansas, 6 of 9 for 3. Touched on the 3, how big that's going to be. Bryce Hopkins doesn't look like he can shoot it, but he's quite a good 3-point shooter. And also another one to watch there is Dylan Mitchell, coming over in the portal from Cincinnati. Mitchell playing some strong minutes, able to, help limit Darren Peterson. Good on the glass. This is going to be a really good game. I really think St. John's going to cover that, and I really think they're live to win. I just think, Boozer, yes, he's one of the top prospects. Yes, he's going to be able to get his. But, outside of that, where does the scoring come from Duke? Yes, you have Evans there on the outside. Dame Sarr. Am I really going to rely on him to get the, 15 to 20 points if necessary? Probably not. Hemeni off the bench, not really going to, rely on him to, help win that game. And I think also, while it's big that Nganga's back too, it's also big that Caleb Foster has not, been ruled in for the game. Duke's leader, point guard, and I think it's a huge loss, and I think it's going to be too much to overcome. So give me St. John's plus a 6.5, and I like them outright as well.
Yeah, and really just looking at when has Duke they did play Michigan in that kind of one-off game on February 21st. They were able to win it neutral court 68-63. But other than that, in ACC play, they really don't play a lot of tough defensive teams. And yes, Michigan, one of the top defenses in the nation, and they were able to hold Duke to 68 points. I think we're going to see something very similar to here. Joker did talk about the spread. We'll take a look. The over is 141. Joker, how do you feel about that? You think maybe that's a little bit too high? I feel like if this is a St. John's game, I mean, I know you like St. John's. Like, if you're thinking St. John's game, you got to be thinking this game, there's not going to be a lot of points in this game, right?
You said 141.5? Yeah, this is going to be a St. John's win. I think you touched on it as well. The pace is going to be controlled by St. John's. They're going to go deep into the shot clock. If you like St. John's in this game to not only cover the spread but also to win outright, you should be on the under in this game. I don't see a game where St. John's wins this 75-70. If St. John's is able to control the tempo and really keep this game in check, I see them winning 69-63, 69-66, something like that.
Yeah, and one last thing that I want to bring in is the coaching. If we're at a 65-65 tie game with 30 seconds left, who do you want calling the plays? John Shire or Rick Pitino? And guys, I'm going Rick Pitino all day. I think Duke needs to have a lead going into the last few minutes of this game. Otherwise, it's going to be danger zone for them. Joker, what do you think about that with the coaching differential here?
I agree. I would take Pitino, obviously, late game situation. Probably, over 90% of the coaches in college basketball. But I think Duke's best chance to win a national title was last season with Cooper Flagg and Ncaa, and they couldn't get it done then. I don't think they have enough to get it done now. I know they're number one overall seed. A lot of people are high on them. A lot of people expect them to get it done. But like I said, if they couldn't get it done last year, they're not going to get it done this year.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Next game, we have the number 2 UConn Huskies taking on the number 3 seeded Michigan State Spartans. And honestly, guys, I keep giving you out the seeds, but it doesn't even matter. Now that we're in the Sweet 16, the seeds really make no difference. I don't even know why I'm saying it. It's just a habit, I guess. Michigan State able to get through Louisville, and we called that game I called that exactly by 8 points. Michigan State able to win by exactly 8. Just a really nice performance from them. We had Michigan State out-rebounding Louisville 39-32. The biggest difference, and Joker brought this up in the breakdown, was the personal fouls. Michigan State with only 11 fouls compared to Louisville's 21. That's a big differential, especially when you're talking about an 8-point game. So, nice win for them. They're into the Sweet 16. They take on the UConn Huskies, who were able to beat UCLA. And this whole injury news with UCLA and Bilodeau was a little bit frustrating. I told you guys I was back and forth with UCLA, UCF, and then I got the news that Bilodeau and Dent were practicing, so I felt pretty confident in it. But then a few hours before the game, it came out that Bilodeau was going to sit because Mick Cronin said he was able to play, but he looked stiff. So Cronin made the coach's decision to sit Bilodeau. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but a little bit concerning. They didn't have their best player. UConn's able to get a pretty easy win. This game was close probably till about 10 minutes, and UCLA went scoreless for about 6 to 7 minutes, and you can't do that against a quality team like UConn. One big standout for me for UConn was Karaban, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 50% from 3. Whenever UConn needed a score, he showed up. And, that's the senior leadership that you look for on a tournament team. And Donovan Dent, we talked about him. I thought he was going to have a pretty good game. He had a double-double, 11 points, 10 assists, but again, not enough to beat this UConn Husky team. Joker, before I get into the breakdown of this game, what did you see from these two games in the round of 32?
Again, I'll mention, obviously a UConn homer, but called this one pretty clean. I mean, I told you the X factor is going to be Caravan. When they need a big shot, Caravan was there. Senior leadership, I preached that in the last breakdown. Huge. This UConn team, led by Caravan, led by Terrace Reed, they were able to get it done. I don't think it would have made a difference, to be quite honest with you, if Bilodeau played. UConn was by far the better team. Yes, they've had some woes shooting the three, especially Braylon Mullins, their star freshman. But he was able to knock down some big shots, made a couple threes late. And I think that's a dangerous thing if he can get going. Obviously, their other standout guard, Solo Ball, 0-5 from the three-point line, did not score in this game. Obviously, he was plagued with foul trouble early, and then Dan really decided to go with the hot hand. But if Solo Ball can figure it out and get that ball from three going again, I mean, UConn's very dangerous. I mean, yes, hats off to UCLA, great season. Mick Cronin's another coach that I like to watch. His teams are always up for the game. He's a very high-energy coach, but I like the way UConn played, and I'm excited for this matchup.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this. And one important thing to kind of note here is this Michigan State team just played UCLA in the conference tournament, losing 88-84. So, I don't believe in the reciprocal games like that. Like I don't think they really. It's all about matchups here when we're looking at the games, but just something that when you're looking back and people like to compare like these recent games. So they did. You have UConn winning 73-57 and Michigan State losing 88-84. It's not going to affect my pick. That's a little bit of a hint for me. One of the big key factors to this game for me is who is going to dominate the boards. And this is a Michigan State team that has just always been extremely solid at rebounding. Number 1 in the nation in defensive rebounds, number 9 in offensive rebounds. They are number 14 defense in the nation, number 26 offense in the nation. This is a very strong team. And, Joker brought up Solo Ball. And this is all I hear is Solo Ball this, Solo Ball that. And he really hasn't had a great game I don't know. I don't know, Joker. You can tell us in your breakdown when his last amazing game was. But UConn does have the different parts that can challenge a team like Michigan State. But for me, the biggest difference is going to be on the boards. I think Michigan State is going to crash the glass. They're going to get a lot of rebounds. They're not going to give UConn a lot of second opportunities. If UConn comes out and they're able to shoot really well, great, they're probably going to win that game. But you're not getting many second chances against Michigan State, and that's why this Michigan State team has been able to notch some very good wins. That's why they're 27-7 overall, 15-5 in the Big Ten Conference. And we know Tom Izzo, extremely good coach. He's going to have a good scheme. We're giving him 5 days to prepare for this UConn team. I think he's going to be ready. I'm going to go with Michigan State to win by 3. Yes, that's going to be an upset. The spread is UConn. I see UConn minus 2.5. Joker, you can tell me what you have. One other thing, noting with the total, it's 136. It's going to be a low-scoring game. This is going to be an ugly, drag-it-out game, and I love Michigan State in those types of games. So give me Michigan State. They're going to win this 1 by 3. Joker, did I anger you with that pick?
No, I just had to sit there and listen to a lot of, things that just not going to happen on Friday. But no, I actually locked in UConn minus 1.5. I got an early line, great line. But, yeah, obviously there's no surprise here. I'm taking UConn to win this game. Michigan State, very good team. Like you said, Tom Izzo, come March, great coach. We'll have them ready to go. For me, obviously, Michigan State predicated on moving the ball around. with Jeremy Fears. And for me, if you can stop Jeremy Fears, I think you will slow down that Michigan State team. And for UConn, having Silas Demery come back and show that he can play heavy minutes, played about 20, 25 minutes in the win over UCLA, having him on Jeremy Fears will free up solo ball, I think, more off the ball, and also will allow Braylon Mullins to kind of spread out as well a little bit more. I mean, I think if UConn can stop Fears, I think they win this game, I would say by 6 to 7 points. I mean, yes, Michigan State big in the middle with Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler, but I think UConn, who's very, very good, like we talked about in the last breakdown, at defending the three-point line, held UCLA to only 5 made threes. Michigan State likes to shoot the three, especially with Scott and Kurtang. They love to shoot the three. If they can stop that and play great perimeter defense, be fundamentally sound and rebound the ball, I think the shots will come for UConn. They're going to get open looks, especially in the pick and roll. Michigan State this year kind of struggle against the pick and roll in some of these big games. So if UConn can execute that with Terrace Reed, I think we're going to see a definitive 6-point win for the Huskies.
Yeah, and that I am a little bit scared, obviously, giving this pick out. This UConn team has a lot of ways to score. I think this Michigan State team has maybe 2, maybe 3 ways to score, where, like, if one of those guys goes off, you have who is it? Joker, Carson Cooper, right? He's a good scorer. Jeremy Fears, obviously a good scorer. But, like, if you have some of these guys that go off, it's going to be a tough game for them. But the one thing that kind of sells me on that a little bit is the total. We have a 136 total. This is going to be low scoring. So even if maybe we have a little bit of droughts, I just feel like this Michigan State team is going to be able to hang around. The one thing that we're seeing with all of these Big Ten teams in this tournament is the defense. The defense just shutting down all of these teams that really haven't seen strong defenses. Now, obviously, I know UConn's played the stifling St. Johns defense. I got to see it. And for me, like, I'm sticking with the pick. I'm going to go with Michigan State. Joker, do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, also, I want to touch on this as well. Obviously, Big Ten, one of the best conferences in basketball. For me, in big games, when Michigan State goes down, I don't think they're built to come from behind. And if they can't make shots early, and if they're having trouble spreading out and Fears getting, the ball moving around, especially in transition, I just don't think Michigan State's built to come from behind. If UConn can get that lead, stay sound, knock down some open shots, also get to the free throw line where UConn, it feels like they make every free throw. But I believe they're about 75% or better from the free throw line as a team, one of the better teams in the country. I really think Michigan State's going to have a very tough time, especially having to chuck up, threes late and having to rely on that. That's just not their game. Yes, they love to shoot the three, but it's just not their game. Their bread and butter to me, down low with Cooper, Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler. But, I'll leave it at that. I'm sticking with UConn at a 6-point win. It's going to be an ugly defensive game, but it's going to be a classic Dan Hurley, Tom Izzo, Sweet 16 matchup.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Our next game, we have the number 9 Iowa Hawkeyes taking on the number 4 Nebraska Cornhuskers. The Battle of the Cornfields here. Going to be an extremely interesting game. Let's talk about Iowa first. Able to get through Clemson in the first round, 67-61, and then having that stunning win over Florida, coming back from being down to win 73-72. And the one thing that really shocked me here, and I talked a little bit about it before with the UConn-Michigan State game, was the defense of Iowa just being able to stop Florida. They controlled the pace the whole way through, and that's not something, for a team like Florida, the number 1 seed, one of the top teams in the nation, you should be controlling your pace. You should be the ones, dictating how you want the game played. But it wasn't. It was Iowa. It was this Ben McCollum, slow, drag it out, roll you to sleep offense that was able to prevail, holding Florida to 72 points. Now, one name that we always hear about Iowa is Bennett Sturtz, and he didn't have a great game, didn't have a lot of points, 13 points, 0 from 9 from three-point range. And obviously, he's a lot better than that. But he was able to make some of those big plays, getting an assist off for the game-winning three. And the defending champs are now out. This is the one last thing I'll say is that last possession of Florida, like, I don't know what we were doing. You're throwing the ball so far under the rim that it was hard to attack up. You couldn't get the ball out. Now you're crowded. You don't have enough time to do that. So just a really frustrating performance from Florida there at the end. But good on Iowa. They're representing the Big Ten. They now take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who come off a home game against Vanderbilt. And I say home game because that crowd felt like it was 99% Nebraska fans. And I'm sure Vanderbilt felt it as well. And there's another coaching error here. And I remember texting Joker at the end of this game, and I couldn't believe it. We'll talk about it in a second. Big crowd for them. Nebraska shoots 47% from three-point. That is unreal. I mean, it really did feel like we were playing Nebraska at home. They're able to prevail 74-72. And the one play that I had an issue with was not calling a timeout on Vandy's final possession. Not the one where they had the 3-point that almost went down. That was like 2.5 or 3 seconds left. That three almost went down. It almost became the biggest shot of the maybe of the tournament for sure, but maybe in the history of NCAA if that goes down. And one more thing before I talk about the timeout. The Joker did note that this was going to be the Nebraska-Vanderbilt game was going to be the game of the tournament, and it was. It delivered 100%. Tough loss for Vandy. That's a really well-coached team, and you've got to credit the Vanderbilt athletic department. What they're doing with that school is tremendous. Making waves in football and now making waves in basketball. That school is going to be a staple in the top sports here for years to come. Now, that final timeout, I could not believe that they had one timeout left for Vanderbilt. And you're talking about the most important possession of the entire year, and you don't call a timeout to get your, 84, 90% play out there. That frustrates me so much. Obviously, I thought Vanderbilt was going to win. This was my one pick that I didn't get. 7-1 overall, lose the one on a buzzer beater. But honestly, Vanderbilt should have scored. If they had called a timeout, they would have gotten a playoff. They probably would have been able to score there. But whatever, ifs, ands, or buts. Nebraska comes through. They now play Iowa. Before I get into that matchup, Joker, what did you see from these games?
Yeah, I was really, really pleased to see that Vanderbilt and Nebraska game was what it was. I mean, I told you before, I love this matchup. I think it had all the potential to be one of the games of the tournament. It was. Tyler Tanner putting Vanderbilt on his back. I'm a huge Tyler Tanner fan. It will be fun to see at the next level. Nebraska, they hung in tough. I mean, Hoiberg had those boys hanging in there back and forth possession. I agree with you that last possession, like you said, could have gone another way, but that game delivered with everything you asked for. And hats off to Vanderbilt on the season, and they will be back. I mean, like you said, they're making waves not only from basketball and football, I mean, just in general. I mean, it's great to see. That game from Florida, that last possession, there's really no other way to put it. It was a disgrace from Todd Golden. As the defending champions, to run that play, to put the ball in Xavier Lee's hands, I'm Todd Golden. I mean, that ball, that needs to go to Thomas Howe earlier than that. I mean, to run that play with, I think it was 4 seconds left, 3 seconds left, whatever it was, go the length of the court, throw that ball in the basket with 4 Iowa Hawkeyes there.
And Xavier Lee under the basket, like,
it made no sense. It made no sense. I mean, Fulgaris with, just an absolute clutch step back three. But when I saw that, that's what was developing. I'm like, this game is over. There's no way. I mean, give me Houck from 40 feet. I'll take that shot over, what they ran that last play. But, Iowa, I don't think it can be understated. They came and they took down the number one, defending champs. I mean, Bennett Sturts, by all accounts, had a pretty bad game. I mean, he did not shoot the ball well. I mean, he couldn't hit anything. Is he going to do that again in this game? I highly doubt it. One thing I do want to touch on, obviously the team split in the regular season 1-1. I'm looking at this over-under, I believe right now as it stands, 133.5. I'm going to go over. I mean, these two teams, lights out from three, both shoot the free throws very well. They get to the line. I mean, Nebraska with ranked mass playing center can get outside and also knock down the threes. I mean, Fulgaris showed you he can knock down threes. I mean, legitimately, all 10 guys on the court at any given time are going to be able to hit a three. I think this one flies over 133.5. I think this line, I couldn't believe it. I'm expecting this to be like maybe a 146, 147 over-under, but to see it so low, I just don't think we're going to see a defensive battle here. I think Nebraska is going to win. The X factor for me is going to be sixth man of the year in the Big Ten, Braden Frager. Just like he was at the end of the game against Vanderbilt. I think he's going to play a big role again against Iowa. I think Nebraska just going to have a little too much too late for Iowa. Give me Nebraska in a close one by 4.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really tough matchup for me as well. And like what Joker said, these guys have played twice. Iowa won. Iowa holds at home. Nebraska holds at home in overtime. The second game that they played, though, was an overtime 84-75 game, higher scoring. And, guys, remember, there's not going to be a breaking in period here. These guys know each other. They're familiar. This is the third time they've seen each other. I don't really see this being, a slower paced. I don't see it being a lower scoring game. I do see it being a slower pace game. Now, the difference is I think there's going to be slower pace, but I think they're going to score most of these possessions. So I think Iowa's going to be able to control this pace, and I do agree that it's going to be that it's going to be a tough game. We have Hoiberg playing McCollum, and obviously they've already seen each other twice. Who's going to prepare better? I love what I'm seeing from the Ben McCollum Iowa Hawkeyes offense and defense being able to control this pace. If they were able to do it against Florida, they're going to be able to do it against Nebraska for the third time. Obviously, Nebraska at home, a little bit of an advantage there. But when Iowa had them at home, they were able to hold this high-flying Nebraska team to 52 points. I see this game kind of floating around in like the 70s, maybe like a 73 to 68 type game. I agree with Joker. I think it does go over. It is so hard to take an under on this game, an under 133 with the way both teams shoot the three ball. It's just like you're playing with fire if you're trying to take an under here. So just be careful with that. But guys, my pick here is the Iowa Hawkeyes. I love the way they're playing. I think this style is successful in the NCAA tournament. I think they're going to cause Nebraska some problems. Nebraska, I wouldn't say lucky. I thought they played a really good game, but they had a home crowd. Now we're going to be on a true neutral floor. We're going to see what we can get from this Nebraska team. They shot 47% from the three. That's going to regress. Now, that's going to regress here in this game. They're not going to shoot 50% again from the three. That would be insane. If they do, I guess I'll eat my words. But for now, guys, I'm going with Iowa. I say they win by 3. Let's move on to the next game. Next matchup, we have the number 3 seeded Fighting Illini playing the number 2 seeded Houston Cougars. Let's talk first about Illinois and their path. They stormed through Penn 105-70. We talked about that game. No defense present in that game. We knew that Illinois was going to be able to name their number on the boards. They get to the 100 mark, score 105 to beat Penn. Then they come back and beat a VCU team that was lucky to get through North Carolina. Remember, North Carolina had a 19 or 20 point lead on this team, and Illinois is able to kind of get that lead and not really falter there. Maybe that game was close for the first 10 minutes, but Illinois prevails 76-55. Stojakovic had 21 points off the bench. He's looking really good. Remember, he's the Cal transfer, Stanford to Cal to Illinois now. Illinois out-rebounding VCU 45-29, and they were able to shoot 38% from the three-point range. So they're looking pretty solid. Let's take a look at the Houston Cougars. They were able to beat Idaho in the first round 78-47. Not even a close game. If you guys remember, I think it was this game. Actually, you know what? I think it was the Prairie View A&M game where the coach said that we need the help from God in the coach's interview mid-game.
God wasn't helping that game.
Yeah, I think it was Prairie View A&M, but anyways, Houston then able to play 88-57 over Texas A&M, stifling defense, stops buckyball in its tracks. Texas A&M 35% from the field, 25% from three-point range. That is not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done in the NIT. It's not going to get it done in the NCAA tournament, guys. So no objection here with Houston being able to dominate Texas A&M. And before I get into the breakdown, Joker, talk to me about these two games.
Yeah, so I think let's just address the elephant in the room first, and that was my pick of, buckyball. I will say this. I was at an engagement party this weekend. Everyone's watching the games, and I looked at one point. It was 27-24 Houston. I said, wow, if A&M can keep this, within 5, in the first half, I think they have a legit shot. I had a lobster roll come back to the game. Houston scored what seemed like 30 straight points, and they were down. A&M, I think, was down 24 at the time. So not only was buckyball dead at that point, the funeral had happened already, and everyone had moved on. Houston just flexed, all the guns. They're very impressive showing on defense, as we expected, as we mentioned in the last breakdown. Just a very, very impressive team. Now, Illinois, Team Europe, as they're fondly called on this podcast. If you like offense versus defense, this is the game you want. I'm just looking forward to the matchup. Illinois, what more can you say about Illinois? They look fantastic. They can score it at wherever they want. I can't wait for the matchup.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about this matchup. We have Illinois coming in. They are 26-8 on the year, 15-5 in the Big Ten. Brad Underwood as the coach. Offense is the number 2 offense in the nation, the number 22 defense in the nation. The one thing, and I was talking to Joker a little bit off air on this, was I just feel like when this Illinois team has to go up against some of those bigger hitters, some of those athletes, I feel like the defense just becomes a little bit too soft. And, we saw that against Michigan. We saw it against Michigan State. We saw it against, I don't know if I would call Nebraska. They did lose to Nebraska, but I don't think I would call it. We saw it against Connecticut. When they have to go, really, ground and pound with some of these guys on the defensive end, that to me is where they tend to struggle. Obviously, 22 in the nation, not a bad number to be at. Looking at this Houston Cougars team, they are number 12 in offense, number 3 in defense, and for me, the offense is looking better. Obviously, I'm reading these numbers off there for the entire year, but I feel like the last 10 games, this Houston Cougars team is just looking extremely well balanced. They got all 5 guys on the squad, all 5 starters can score double digits. This is an extremely well balanced attack, and like what Joker was saying, you have the one of the best defenses in Houston going up against one of the best offenses in Illinois. But conversely, if you look, you have a strong Illinois defense playing a very strong Houston offense. I think the difference is going to be that Houston's offense is going to win out against Illinois. I think Houston's going to be able to win this game. I think they're going to win it decently, convincingly. So give me Houston by 7. Joker, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this game, I'll say it again. Kelvin Sampson coach team, March, in my opinion, the best defensive team that we've seen in recent memory, not just this year, but, last couple of years. I do like Houston to win. The only thing I will say that kind of gives me a little bit of pause to just be so enamored with the Houston pick is Houston's ability to go 5 to 8 minutes in any given half without scoring, and which seems crazy when you have Kingston Fleming's, like I said, it's going to be a top 5 pick, can get his shot anyway. EJ Sharp, Emmanuel Sharp, he's going by these days. Hitting threes, Sanak, same thing, Tugler. It's just odd to see them go 5 to 8 minutes without scoring, but obviously they can get away with that with the defensive prowess. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to get away with that against Illinois, who can score at will. They'll drop, 80 to 90 points on anyone. I don't know that they'll get enough possessions to get that high with the way Houston likes to control the pace. But that's the only thing I'd be aware of. I mean, yes, I'm going to side with Houston, but that to me, and we'll reconvene after this game, but I think that gives me a little bit of pause on Houston. And I don't feel great about the pick, but I do think that Houston gets it done.
Yeah, and that is the exact thing that plagued them in the championship game against Florida. They had the lead, and they have this drought of scoring, and we talked about it. I talked about it at the beginning of in our first video, Kelvin Sampson going out trying to find some scores so that this doesn't happen. But it just seems to be something that plagues this team where they do have these droughts. And yeah, I agree. Against a team like Illinois, you don't want to have 5 minutes of no scoring. Your defense can hold for sure, but you're pushing your luck against one of the top 5 offenses in the nation. All right, let's move on to the next video. Next matchup is the number 4 seeded Arkansas Razorbacks taking on the number 1 seeded Arizona Wildcats. Let's talk about this Arkansas team first. They're able to get through a first round against Hawaii, 97-78. Just totally outmatched Hawaii there with their athleticism, with their speed. Really overwhelmed that team. It wasn't even close at the beginning of the game. Then they play High Point in the second round, and they're able to survive 94-88 against a very tricky High Point team. We know High Point, they like to score really fast. They're going to throw up a ton of shots. They throw up the most shots in the nation, and this was almost a recipe to beat Arkansas. And Arkansas able to survive here. Acuff shooting 50% from three-point range. He had 36 points. Arkansas 56% overall from three-point range. That is extremely impressive, and I don't even know how did High Point stay with a team like this. That's just an extremely impressive game from High Point. They've gotten all of our praises in the NCAA tournament. I picked against them in the first round, but hats off to High Point. They looked really solid. Rob Martin on High Point, 30 points. Fun note, he was on Indiana State last year and didn't play a minute. Wild. And now he's scoring 30 points on Arkansas in the NCAA tournament. Great game for them. Arkansas able to hang on 94-88. Looking at these Arizona Wildcats, they have a easy win 92-58 against LIU, and then a 78-66 win over Utah State. And this Utah State game was really interesting. It wasn't back and forth. Arizona was dominating the game. They were up by 20. It felt like a home environment for Utah State. So definitely credit to Arizona to be able to focus. They have the athletes. They're strong from every part of the court. But they go 8 minutes without scoring. And this allows Utah State to make it a 2-point game. From Arizona was up 20. And Utah State's able to kind of climb back in, make some shots, get some stops. And a lot of it was just unforced errors and stupid shots from Arizona. It really wasn't Utah State stepping their game up. And that's a little bit concerning. We did see this previously in a BYU game. I believe it was Arizona at BYU. Arizona is dominating them. And then I think they're up double digits, and then all of a sudden it comes back to a one-possession game. BYU with a chance to win it, and Arizona gets a block to hold on for the win. But when you play this style, guys, you can't let a team back into the game, especially in the NCAA tournament. That is just asking for trouble. Arizona able to still get a 12-point win, 78-66. Joker, what do you have to say about these two games?
Yeah, I thought Arizona looked fantastic. I think I mentioned that Utah State would give them a game, which it was nice to see at the end. There were some points where, Utah State was down 6 points, and they looked good. They were, a fun team to watch this year. Hats off to them on a great season. But Arizona, when they needed it, Jaden Bradley, the senior, took over the game. He looks fantastic, and I think that he's going to be so important against Arkansas. I mean, he's got to be on Acuff. He's going to match Acuff. I think he's going to be the X factor to them winning. Arkansas, tight one against High Point. But we mentioned it. High Point's a fun team to watch, run and gun. I think they put some legitimate fear into John Calipari. I really do. But at the end, just came up a little bit short. And I think Arkansas is in for a rude awakening in this matchup.
Yeah, so looking at this matchup a little bit further, we know Arkansas is going to play a fast pace. And when I started to look at this breakdown, my big question was, how was Arkansas going to deal with the Arizona bigs in the paint? I feel like that's where Arizona's going to have a lot of success. The big issue to me is going to be whether Arizona can keep the pace with Arkansas. We know that Arizona's had some of these scoring droughts, and if you have that type of scoring drought against this Arkansas team, you're going to find yourself down 10, 15, maybe even 20 points. And that's a deficit that Arizona does not want to face. My other big knock is Tommy Lloyd has not really had great success here with the talent that he's brought in at Arizona. So I'm always very skeptical in taking a team like Arizona to make it far in the Big Dance. And this team is by far the best team that Tommy Lloyd has had. They have also challenged themselves tremendously. They are 16-2 in quad one games. They've played 18 quad one games. That's got to be the highest in the nation for a team. And they have not lost a quad two, quad three, quad four game. That doesn't matter. This is a quad one game. I got to go with Arizona. We're looking at the number 7 offense in the nation, the number 2 defense in the nation. They are so strong all over the place. They are the number 2 defense defending the 2-point shot. This is just going to be a very tough game. I'm curious to see if the offense of Arkansas is going to be able to play against this strong, stifling defense of Arizona. I don't think it is. I think Arizona is going to win big. Give me Arizona by 12. Joker,
Wow.
Where are you going?
Wow. And I say wow for a couple of reasons. In life, there's 3 things that, are certain. You have death, you have taxes, and you have me picking Arizona late in the year. The one thing that happens every year is they let me down. But I'm going to agree with you. We've been on opposite sides all night, it seems like, on these picks. But I'm going to stand united on this front. I think Arizona puts a beatdown on Arkansas. I think this could be a 15-plus point win. And I say that because Arizona inside with Koa Pete, with Krivas, with Tobe Awaka coming off the bench, with Dwayne Aristode, I don't think Arkansas has the bigs. Just in general, they have no depth, in my opinion. They don't have the bigs to match that. Yes, they have Trayvon Brazile. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Arizona inside at all. if Jaden Bradley can get downhill like he got, last game against Utah State, this is going to be a very long night for Arkansas. They've had a fantastic season. Hats off to winning the SEC. They've looked great. Like I said, A-Cup going to be a top 5 pick. But I think their season is going to end against Arizona. I think finally this is going to be a signature win for Tommy Lloyd. And I think this is something that propels Arizona potentially into the Final Four.
So just quickly before we move on to the next matchup, the total is at 167. The last 4 totals of the last 4 games that we had were either 140 or lower. Now we have a total that is massive. Joker, do you have any thoughts on the total here?
When I first looked at this, I said to myself, this seems astronomically high. But when you stand back and look at it at the pace that these two teams play, it might not be high enough. I would lean the over here. I'm not going to touch the over in this game, but if I had to pick a side, I would go over 161. I could see this potentially getting to 168, 169.
Yeah, and obviously, Arkansas able to throw up 94 and 97 points in their previous 2 NCAA tournament games. That's a very dangerous total. I wouldn't even touch it, guys. That's extremely high for a Sweet 16 game. You're going to need a lot of things to go right, and it also indicates to me maybe that Arizona's going to start to run and gun with this Arkansas team, that they're not going to try to slow them down. They're just going to beat them with pure offense, and I think they can win either way. So it doesn't really matter. But let's move on to the next game. And our next matchup is the number 2 Purdue Boilermakers taking on the number 11 Texas Longhorns, and this is a strong Texas Longhorn squad. Let's talk about them first. They get through the play-in game over NC State with a buzzer beater, winning 68-66. Then they beat BYU 79-71. They beat Gonzaga 74-68, and that was a score. Joker said Texas was going to win by 4. I said Texas was going to win by 6. We're giving you gold here, guys. That was an upset over Gonzaga. One thing that I want to talk about with this Texas team, obviously they have some good scorers, Voka Titus, but they haven't played a team like this Purdue team. And well, let's talk about Purdue first, actually, before we kind of get into that breakdown. We have Purdue getting through Queens 104-71 and beating Miami 79-69. And the Miami game was very close, but Purdue able to pull away late, able to kind of flex their muscles. They have tons of scorers at each part of the court, but just able to kind of be a little bit stronger than this Miami team, getting that 10-point win. Joker, did you see anything in those 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, first off, congrats to us for being right on the money with Texas. We both saw it. Gonzaga, I mean, they fall into the fraud category for me every year, and this year was no different. I think Texas, they've really come on strong. I mean, from a team that they might not even been on the bubble 2.5 weeks ago, played their way in. I mean, they've looked great. I mean, led by Tremont Mark, Dalen Swain, like you said, Voka Titus. They have some legit players. They got some good scoring. But I think the Cinderella story is going to end this weekend, later this week, excuse me. I love Purdue. You know that. I said it before. There's nothing you want more in March than a veteran backcourt leadership. And you're not getting that anywhere else besides Braden Smith, who just broke the assist record, and Fletcher Lawyer. Both of those guys played fantastic last game. Lawyer had 24, looked great. Adding Kaufman-Wren, Oscar Clough, the center, transfer from South Dakota State, been playing unbelievable. With their complementary guards, they've looked fantastic. Purdue's a team that's going to shoot the 3 well. They're going to shoot free throws well, and they're going to run the pick and roll until the game hits 0. Not a popular pick here. We spoke about this off air. I think Purdue puts belt to behind in this one. I expect Purdue to win double digits. I'm a little spoiler for, hopefully the couple weeks ahead. I love Purdue to do great things this year with this team. I think they roll Texas in this one.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. We talked off camera, and I'm looking at the numbers and everything, and I gotta go with Purdue as well. This is a team that Matt Painter has built to win a championship. Like what you mentioned, Braden Smith, Oscar Clough, Kaufman Wren, Lawyer, Cox, like they can go small and they can go big. They have the options that they want. My one problem with Matt Painter is his inability to make in-game adjustments, and we saw this in the Michigan State loss, the Ohio State loss, the Indiana loss. There's a lot of games here where Matt Painter just isn't able to make those coaching adjustments, and I don't think that's even going to be an issue here against Texas. I think, like what Joker said, they are going to come out and just pummel this team to start. They have the talent. They have the guys. We're talking about now the number 1 offense in the nation, the number 35 defense in the nation. They are number 7 from three-point shooting. Guys, how many times do I mention I love a team that can shoot threes to make it deep, to be able to get out and extend your lead a little bit? How many times do we see, if you're up by 2, now you hit a 3 and all of a sudden the crowd's going nuts, momentum's starting to fall away from the other team, and then maybe you get a steal in another 3, and this is a number 7 team in the nation, guys. They can do that stuff. They're going to run a nice tempo here. I think they beat Texas. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I don't agree with Joker. I don't know if it's going to be a huge win, but I think it's going to be a win. This Purdue team sometimes concerns me a little bit, just with how they kind of manage some of these games. But I'm gonna go with Purdue. I think they're gonna win by 7 points here over the Texas Longhorns and move on to the next round. Let's take a look at the next game. Our next matchup is the number 2 Iowa State Cyclones taking on the number 6 Tennessee Volunteers. Let's talk about Iowa State first. An extremely well-balanced attack. They are without Jefferson, so that might be a little bit of a concern, but they looked extremely good against Tennessee State, winning 108-74. Tennessee State really had no chance in that game. And then they came up against a Kentucky team that was playing pretty well. Kentucky gets out to an early lead, but Iowa State able to kind of just slow them down and slow their offense down, winning 82-63. Tennessee, on the other hand, able to beat the Miami of Ohio team 78-56, and this Miami of Ohio team, obviously they don't play a lot of defense, and Tennessee shot tremendously. Rick Barnes saying in his press conference that this was the best he has seen his team shoot all year. They follow that up with a 79-72 win over Virginia, and I was a little bit disappointed in that game. I picked Virginia. I thought that was a pretty solid play, but Tennessee just being a little bit too strong. I thought Virginia heating up at the right moment, playing Duke in that close ACC championship game, but Tennessee just being a little bit too strong. 39-35 in favor of the Volunteers on the rebounding. And they're able to hold Virginia to 34% from three-point range, 39% from the field, while shooting themselves 42% from three-point range and 47% from the field. So pretty nice day. Another good offensive performance from Tennessee. Joker, do you have anything to say about these two games?
Yeah, I mean, I had Tennessee. They looked great against Virginia. I think Rick Barnes, this is one of his better teams. I'm a big fan of Nate Ament, their star freshman, and I'm a big Jacoby Gillespie fan too. Iowa State, as expected, I think we mentioned on the last breakdown, they kind of steamrolled over Kentucky, which I think you can agree. We talked about this, offline as well. That was one of the most disappointing teams in recent memory, with how much I think they spent $22 million in NIL to that team, and they were terrible. I mean, there's really no excuse. I mean, a couple injuries, but still, I mean, if you're spending $22 million, you could do a lot better than that.
And you should at least be making the second week.
Yeah, I think that's like the least you could do with that. But I can't wait for this match. I'm just going to get right into it. I mean, I think this is going to be a great matchup, with especially the guard play. Jacoby Gillespie against Taylor Lipsy. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to, in my opinion. The X factor for me, Nate Ament, with Jefferson being out, I think that's going to be pretty big for Iowa State to overcome. I mean, they really didn't get much resistance from Kentucky, whereas Tennessee, they're a very fundamentally sound team. They're going to just, come at you with pressure. And I think, with the way they move the ball around and they make timely shots, again, I feel like I say this ad nauseum, it's so important to be a good free throw shooting team, which Tennessee is as well. One thing that I do think that Tennessee has the edge is inside with Felix Okpara. He's not going to give you much offensively, but defensively it's going to be huge. And I think if Nate Ament can keep Milan Momcilovic off the three-point line, I think Tennessee has a real chance to play spoiler here and as a 6 seed advance to the Elite Eight. And that's my pick. I'm going to go with Tennessee here. Tight matchup. I think it's going to be a 3 or 4 point game, but I like Rick Barnes to get it done here.
Yeah, and we're gonna be on the opposite sides again here. I like Iowa State. I think this Iowa State defense is something to be reckoned with. If there's one thing we've seen with these SEC teams in this tournament, it is playing against a tough defense. They just cannot handle any of these strong defenses because they haven't seen them all season. Like they're playing the entire SEC schedule. You don't see a lot of tough, strong defenses. You see a lot of fast pace. You see Alabama, who runs a stifling fast pace on offense. You see buckyball, but look at what Iowa was able to do to Florida. They were able to slow them down, and I think that's exactly what we're going to see here from this Iowa State team. Number 5 in the nation in defense, number 18 in offense. Yes, the Jefferson injury does concern me a little bit, but you still have Momcilovic, Lipsy, Buchanan. You have a strong core of players that are going to be able to lead this team. Now, let's not forget that Tennessee struggled both games against Kentucky. This is an Iowa State team that was able to just roll this Kentucky team. Tennessee blew leads in both their Kentucky games, losing both of them by, I think it was like 3 to 5 points. So I just think this is going to be a different look for them. They're gonna have to take a lot of tough shots. We saw them have a great day against Miami of Ohio shooting. We saw them have a good day against who was their other opponent there? Joker. Against Virginia shooting. I just don't see it happening here. This is going to be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense that they've seen all year. Give me Iowa State. I think they're going to win by, I'm going to say 5 points. Let's move on to the next slide. And one quick thing we wanted to know, and Joker was going to bring this up, but I cut him off. Iowa State's free throw shooting rate is one of the worst in the nation. They are 331st in the nation in free throws. So keep an eye out for that, guys. If that game does get close, it's going to be tough. If you bet Iowa State and that game gets close, you're going to be tearing your hair out, hoping that they make a free throw. So just keep an eye out for that if you do bet the spread on that. Let's take a look at the next game. We have the number 1 Michigan Wolverines taking on the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide, and this one's definitely going to be a fun game here. Let's take a look at Michigan's road here. They're able to beat Howard 101-80. Not really much defense there, but Michigan just kind of putting up all those points, able to get through Howard. And then they take on a St. Louis team where they put up 95 points again, beating St. Louis 95-72. Remember, St. Louis coming off that 100-point game against Georgia. Extremely impressive showing there. Looking at this Alabama team, they are coming off a 90-70 win against Hofstra and a 90-65 win against a very injured Texas Tech. Alabama able to get out in front of that Texas Tech team pretty early and just set the tone immediately. I mean, this team is extremely tough to beat if they're able to get a lead. Alabama's numbers were just extremely impressive against Texas Tech. They shot 45% from three-point range, 44% from the field. Texas Tech only shooting 34% from the field and 16% from three-point range. That's just not going to get it done against this Alabama team. Joker, talk to me about those two games, and then talk to me about this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan, just a buzzsaw. I mean, they looked fantastic. I mean, what can you say that we don't already know about Michigan? I mean, they're been number one the whole year for a reason. They're just fun to watch, and they can score in just in an instant. They can put up 20 points. I mean, it's a really fun team to watch. Alabama, I admit I had Alabama. Tech, like I said in the last breakdown, just not the same team without JT Toppin. They just were not. Anderson, obviously a little banged up, played the whole game, but he was very limited by, LeBaron Philon and that Alabama defense, which I thought played really well. I mean, the knock on them has been, defensively not so sound, but when they are clicking on offense and making threes, wow, dangerous team. They were high this year. I mean, obviously, like I said, they had some off-the-court troubles. I mean, Aiden Holloway, they're, one of their star players. I mean, had an egregious criminal mishap there, last week. And then, obviously, bringing in Betty Hacko with NATO, which was a disgrace. But I like Alabama to cover the spread. I really do. I think they're going to keep this game very close. Michigan showed, when they lost that game to Duke, if they're the least bit disturbed in their rhythm on offense and the team can hit threes, I mean, that could be a problem for Michigan. And if there's a team right now that's still in this bracket that could pose, I don't want to say a real threat, but at least a tough game against Michigan, it's Alabama. So give me Alabama to cover the spread.
The spread is at 9.5 right now. I think
9.5, yes.
Yeah, 9.5. Some have it at 10.5. So basically, you're asking Michigan to win by double digits. I gotta disagree with that here. Joker, just to be clear, are you taking Michigan to advance, or are you taking Alabama to advance?
I mean, I love chaos. It's March. I want to see Alabama go and beat Michigan. I don't think it happens. I'm taking Michigan to advance, but I think Alabama will cover that 9.5. I see them losing by 7.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so for me, a couple of things to talk about there from the Joker breakdown. Number one, that Duke game, that was one of the worst games that Michigan shot. I blame that a lot on the balls. I know, people think, oh, that's kind of crazy, but it was a big debate at the beginning of the going into that game. Duke wanted to use the NCAA tournament balls, where Michigan wanted to use the balls that they have been using in the regular season. They're different. Michigan shot bad in that game. I think now they're able to, playing with those and practicing with those, the tournament balls now, they have that comfort. So I don't think they're going to shoot that bad again in a matchup like that. Number two, I don't see how Alabama is going to get stops here. Michigan coming in with the number 4 offense in the nation, the number 4 defense in the nation. This is a well-balanced team. And we talked about the preseason tournament that they were able to play, where they just dominated all of these non-conference opponents, beating Gonzaga by 40, beating Auburn by 30. They look good. And I think we're going to see something very similar. And my biggest thing here is I think the Michigan defense is going to hold this Alabama offense to where they're going to be able to win by double digits. So I'm going to go with Michigan. I think they're going to win this game by 15 points. I just don't see how Alabama can get any stops. Joker, the last thing I wanted to talk about this game, this is the highest total on the board, I believe, at 175.5. Talk to me about that. Do you think that's going to get over the hump here? We know these Alabama games are running and gunning type games. Do you think this one gets over?
Again, another interesting total. I mean, just to the moon in a Sweet 16 matchup. but I think this one's spot on. If Alabama wants to stay in this game and have a chance to win this game, they need to run and gun. They need to dictate that pace, which will be fast. One of the ways they can beat Michigan, tire them out. Michigan, Mara in the middle, get him in foul trouble, get him moving, beat him in transition. Alabama will have to shoot. I'm gonna say it. They're gonna have to shoot 45 threes, and they're gonna have to make 22 to win this game. There is just no way. If they don't, they're not gonna win the game. So I think this total is probably pretty close, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes over.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, if Alabama's going to shoot 50% from 3-point range, I think they would have a fighting chance. I just think this Alabama team's going to have a hand in their face. How many times do we have to talk about SEC teams now going up against defenses that can start to get hands in their faces, challenge their shots? These aren't wide open shots. They're not able to get back into transition. I just feel like this is going to be a Michigan win, and it's going to be a big Michigan win. Let's move on to our next slide. And we're going to try a new segment today with Joker called College Basketball Quick Hits. I'm going to throw a question out. I'm going to have 30 seconds to talk about it. Joker's going to have 30 seconds to talk about it. Let's get started. Question: should the University of North Carolina fire Hubert Davis? My answer is a very strong yes. They have lost back-to-back first-round games. This is just much higher standard that UNC has to hold their teams to, especially with NIL. They're getting good players in. Hubert Davis just isn't able to get the results. Joker, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is long overdue. I expect him to be fired. They just have not been able to get the high level of talent that Roy Williams was able to get. Disappointing season after disappointing season. Yes, they made the title game, but I fully expect Hubert Davis to be gone. I'm going to put a dark horse name to take over in the last 10 seconds here. Watch out for Scott Drew at Baylor.
Next question is Tom Izzo overrated? This is a Michigan State coach. My answer is absolutely not. He has rightfully earned the name Mr. March, going to 17 Sweet 16s, 8 Final Fours, and winning 1 national title in 2000. He holds a 61-26 record in the NCAA tournament. Joker, what say you?
I'm going to go with yes on this. Soon to be 61-27 after this weekend with the Huskies. I mean, like you just touched on it, he hasn't won a title since 2000. I mean, we're talking 26 years. The guy's Mr. March, yeah, but how many times have we seen this team lose in the first round as a 2 seed, a 3 seed? Not buying it. Izzo overrated. I don't care.
Question: did Miami of Ohio deserve an at-large bid? My answer is a resounding yes. This team was 31-1 on the year. 1 slip-up in the conference tournament. I don't think that warrants them being left out. You guys know I have a soft spot in my heart for the mid-majors. Miami of Ohio gets into the tournament. They get a 89-79 win over SMU, their first quad 1 win. They have a tough game against Tennessee. I'm not going to fault them for that. Joker, what say you?
Absolutely not. They did not deserve to get in. I think teams such as San Diego State, Dayton, Auburn deserve to be in over them. I challenge the listeners of this episode to tell me who Miami, Ohio's best regular season win was. You can't tell me off the top of your head because you have no idea. Did not deserve to get in.
And our final question, as always, is now that the dust has settled after the first weekend, who is taking home the championship? I'm still sticking with Michigan. They look like a really strong team. Number 4 offense, number 4 defense. It's going to take a very, very superhuman effort from another team to take them down. Joker, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams that look great. Houston, Arizona, Michigan, they all look great, but it doesn't really matter when it's going to be UConn or Purdue in the finals with the Huskies raising the banner for the 3rd time in the last 4 years. You heard it here first.
Thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We'll be out with another video for the Elite 8, so definitely look out for that. We'll recap our Sweet 16 picks and how we do. Hopefully we have another great couple of days. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.